He shattered her life in one reckless night, but fate forced them into a marriage built on lies, secrets, and a love that refused to die. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heart-stopping love stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The rain came down in sheets, drumming against the glass walls of the Hale mansion like an angry symphony. Inside, laughter and jazz spilled from the grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers shimmering over a sea of expensive perfume and smiling lies. Sebastian Hale stood in the doorway, his tuxedo collar undone, a tumbler of whiskey trembling in his hand. The party was supposed to celebrate his engagement to Clarissa Monroe, the woman the world thought he'd die for. But all he could hear was the echo of her voice from moments ago, soft and breathless, whispering another man's name. His best friend's name. He had walked in on them, Clarissa pressed against the marble counter of his home bar, her hands tangled in another man's hair. The betrayal had hit him like a physical blow. His glass had shattered against the floor, her gasp cutting through the silence. But he hadn't shouted. He hadn't cried. He had simply turned and walked out as if his entire world hadn't just burned to ashes. Now he was in his car, the storm blurring his vision, the whiskey burning down his throat as he sped down the highway with the wipers screeching uselessly. His father's words from earlier that night echoed in his mind, cold, cutting, prophetic. Control your emotions, Sebastian. Hale men don't break. We manage scandals. A bitter laugh escaped him. Scandal. That's all this was to his father. Another stain on the Hale family's perfect reputation. He pressed harder on the accelerator, the city lights streaking like comets through his tears. His chest ached, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He didn't even know where he was going, only that he wanted to outrun the image of Clarissa's betrayal, the suffocating weight of his father's expectations, the empty ache of being loved for his name and not his heart. The car's headlights sliced through the rain, and then for one brief second he saw her. A flash of color. A woman in a pale coat running across the street, clutching a portfolio to her chest. Sebastian's world lurched. He slammed the brakes, too late. The tires screamed, the world spun, and the sound that followed would haunt him forever. The hollow, sickening thud of metal meeting flesh. Then silence. Sophia Bennett had been running late. Her fashion studio had finally gotten the attention of a European brand, and she'd stayed past midnight adjusting her sketches, too lost in her excitement to notice the time. The rain had ruined her umbrella, and she sprinted across the street to catch the last taxi when headlights blinded her. She didn't even have time to scream. Pain exploded through her body, then darkness. When Sophia opened her eyes, everything was white. The ceiling, the walls, the bandages around her leg. The rhythmic beep of a heart monitor echoed faintly. Her mouth was dry. Her body felt heavy. A nurse's voice, calm, practiced, broke through the haze. You're awake. Don't try to move too much, Miss Bennett. You've been in surgery for 6 hours. Sophia blinked, the words barely sinking in. What happened? The nurse hesitated. You were hit by a car. You're lucky to be alive. Sophia tried to sit up, but pain shot through her leg like fire. Panic surged in her chest. My leg, what about my leg? The nurse's eyes flickered. The doctors did their best. There was severe damage, they're hopeful, but recovery may take a long time. Sophia's heart pounded. You mean I'll walk again, right? Silence. Then quietly, they're not sure. The world blurred. Her throat tightened as tears slipped down her cheeks. Walk again. Those words used to mean freedom, movement, the rhythm of her creativity. Now they felt like a distant memory. And then the door opened. He walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, guilt carved into every line of his face. Sebastian Hale. His name had been on the news for days, whispered in every hospital corridor. The heir to Hale International. The man who had ruined her life. For a moment, neither spoke. Sophia's voice came out hoarse. You. He froze, his hand tightening around the flowers he'd brought. Sophia. Don't. Her tone was sharp, cold, wounded. You're the reason I'm lying here. I know, he said quietly, his voice raw. There's not a day that I. Save it. She turned away, her chest trembling. You were drunk, weren't you? He couldn't answer. The silence was enough. Sophia laughed bitterly through her tears. Of course you were. Men like you always escape consequences. He took a hesitant step forward. I didn't escape. I'm here to make it right. Make it right? She repeated, her voice breaking. Can you give me my leg back? My work? My future? Sebastian's throat closed. He couldn't. Nothing he did would ever erase what he'd taken from her. He set the flowers down and whispered, "I'm sorry." Sophia stared at him, the billionaire with his perfect suit, his guilt hidden behind polite apologies, and wished she could hate him enough to make the pain stop. 3 days later, the media storm hit. Heir to Hale empire involved in drunken accident. Victim may be crippled for life. Every headline screamed scandal. Every journalist hunted Sophia's hospital window for a photo. The Hales moved quickly. Damage control. Money. Silence. Sebastian's father, Richard Hale, arrived at the hospital in a crisp suit, his expression as polished as marble. He didn't even glance at his son before saying, "Miss Bennet, the Hale family wishes to take full responsibility for your accident." Sophia looked up from her bed, eyes red. "Responsibility? You mean hush money?" Richard's jaw tightened. "Compensation. We understand you've lost your ability to work. We want to ensure you never have to worry again." Sophia's hand gripped the blanket. "I don't want your money." Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then what do you want, Miss Bennet?" "Justice. My son in prison? That won't fix your leg." Before Sophia could answer, Sebastian stepped in. "Dad, that's enough." Richard's gaze turned on him. "Do you realize what you've done to this family? You've turned us into tabloid trash. You'll marry her." The room went silent. Sophia's heart stopped. "Excuse me?" Richard continued, unmoved. "You'll marry her, Sebastian. It's the only way to restore our image. The public will see it as an act of remorse. You'll take care of her and this mess will disappear." Sophia looked at Sebastian in disbelief. "You think marriage will fix this?" Richard's tone was icy. "It will fix the headlines." Then to his son, "If you refuse, you're out. No inheritance. No company. No Hale name." Sebastian stared at his father, torn between fury and guilt. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious," Richard replied. "You broke a woman's future. The least you can do is give her a stable one." When Richard left, the room felt suffocating. Sophia's voice trembled. "You're not agreeing to this, are you?" Sebastian looked at her, eyes dark and haunted. "If it keeps you from being destroyed by my father's lawyers and the press, then yes." Sophia's breath caught. "You think I want your pity marriage?" "No," he said softly. "But maybe it's the only way I can make things right." The wedding was small, a whisper in the eyes of the world. A chapel with white lilies and no joy. Sophia wore a simple ivory gown that brushed the floor. Her cane rested beside her seat. Sebastian stood beside her, solemn, unshaven, the ghost of regret in every breath. When the priest said, "Do you, Sebastian Hale, take Sophia Bennet to be your lawfully wedded wife?" He hesitated for half a second, just long enough for Sophia to notice. "I do," he finally said. Her own "I do" came out like a whisper she didn't mean. When they kissed, it wasn't a kiss at all. Just a brush of lips, cold and meaningless. Cameras flashed. Somewhere his father was satisfied. Somewhere Clarissa was watching. And Sophia? She felt nothing but emptiness. That night, the mansion loomed over her like a prison. Sebastian opened the door for her, but she walked past him without a word. The marble floors gleamed, the chandeliers sparkled, but everything felt wrong, too grand, too lifeless. Her new husband stood behind her, silent, unsure of what to say. "You don't have to pretend," she said flatly, dropping her bouquet on the table. "We both know this isn't love." "I'm not pretending," he murmured. "I just don't know how to make it right yet." Sophia turned to face him, her eyes full of quiet fire. "You can't make it right, Sebastian. You stole my life. The least you can do is stay out of what's left of it." Then she limped upstairs, leaving him standing alone in the golden light, a man surrounded by wealth, but stripped of everything that ever mattered. And for the first time in his life, Sebastian Hale understood what it meant to truly break. The Hale mansion was made of glass, marble, and silence. Every corridor gleamed, every door closed softly, and every echo reminded Sophia Bennet that she didn't belong there. It had been 3 weeks since the wedding, 3 endless weeks of polite conversations with servants who pitied her, of dinners eaten across a table long enough to hold a kingdom. Sebastian sat at one end. She sat at the other. They never looked at each other for long. The tabloids called them, the couple born from tragedy. To the public, their marriage was a fairy tale of forgiveness. To Sophia it was a cage. Every morning she woke to find fresh lilies by her bed, Sebastian's doing. Every afternoon he drove her to physiotherapy without a word. And every night, he left his whiskey untouched on the bar before heading upstairs, as if afraid of repeating history. He was careful. Too careful. always watching her from a distance, never touching, never raising his voice. Guilt clung to him like perfume, strong, suffocating, impossible to ignore. One evening, after another silent dinner, Sophia finally broke the quiet. "Do you ever get tired of pretending?" she asked. Sebastian looked up, startled. "Pretending? That this is marriage? That this house isn't a tomb?" She set her fork down, her tone sharp. "You keep acting like I'm a fragile doll you broke and you're afraid to touch." He didn't answer. His jaw tightened. "I don't need your pity," she went on. "I need space. Freedom. My own life back." Sebastian's voice was low, controlled. "And I need to know you're okay." "I'm not," she said coldly. "And I won't be as long as I'm trapped here with you." The words hit him like a slap. But he didn't argue. He just nodded once and stood. "I'll give you space then." He left the room quietly, his footsteps fading down the hall. Sophia watched his shadow disappear and felt a strange ache twist in her chest. Anger, confusion, something else she refused to name. That night she couldn't sleep. Her leg throbbed from the day's therapy. The doctor had said progress was slow, that nerves might never fully recover. Each step still felt like walking through knives. But Sophia pushed harder. Pain meant life. Pain meant she wasn't done fighting. She hobbled toward her studio, the only part of the mansion she'd claimed as hers. It was small, tucked behind the east wing, filled with sketches, fabric swatches, and broken dreams. She turned on the light and gasped. The space was spotless. Her design board had been fixed, the bent pins replaced, her scattered sketches neatly arranged. A new mannequin stood in the corner, dressed in one of her half-finished gowns, a sea-green piece she hadn't touched since the accident. There was a note pinned to it, written in Sebastian's neat handwriting. "You said you'd finish it one day. Maybe that day is soon." Her throat tightened. She folded the note carefully, refusing to let tears fall. She didn't know why, but something about his quiet thoughtfulness unsettled her more than his guilt ever had. The next morning she found him waiting by the car. "Ready for therapy?" he asked gently. "I can call a driver," she replied. "I'd rather take you myself." She wanted to argue, but she was too tired. So she sat beside him in silence, watching the rain blur the city through the window. At the rehabilitation center he waited outside while she struggled through her routine. Weights, stretches, slow steps on the treadmill. Sweat mixed with tears. Each movement felt like breaking herself open, rebuilding piece by piece. When she stumbled, Sebastian was already at her side. "I'm fine," she muttered, brushing him off. He didn't move. His hands were steady, his voice low. "You don't have to pretend, Sophia." "I'm not pretending," she snapped, gripping the bars. "I'm surviving." He hesitated, then said softly, "I know. And I'm proud of you." She froze. No one had said those words since the accident. Not her friends who'd vanished. Not her family who didn't know how to look at her. Something inside her cracked. Not enough to let him in, but enough to make her breathe differently. That night, she found him sitting in the garden, staring into the rain. A bottle of whiskey sat unopened beside him. "You didn't drink it," she said quietly. He looked up. "I haven't since that night." "Because of guilt?" "Because if I do," he said, his voice breaking, "I'll see your blood again." Sophia's heart twisted. She sat across from him, the rain misting through the open glass walls. "You can't keep punishing yourself forever, Sebastian." He gave a small, humorless smile. "You sound like someone who knows about punishment." She looked away. "I do." Their eyes met in the dim light, two people broken in different ways, trapped in a story neither chose. Days turned into weeks. Their silence softened, replaced by cautious conversations. She asked about his work, he asked about her designs. Sometimes she caught him staring, not with pity but something warmer, something dangerous. One afternoon she was sketching by the window when he walked in, holding a small wooden box. "What's that?" she asked warily. He opened it to reveal a sleek black brace, custom-made with polished steel and soft padding. "A friend designed it. It should help with your balance." She blinked. "You did this?" He shrugged. "You said the hospital ones were ugly." Sophia laughed, the sound surprising even herself. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything you say," he said simply. Her laughter faded. Their eyes locked, the air between them heavy with unspoken feelings. She looked away first, touching the brace. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," he said, his voice barely above a breath. That evening she tried it on. The new brace hugged her leg perfectly, steady and light. When she took her first few steps, it didn't hurt as much. She walked across the room and for the first time she didn't limp. Sebastian was watching from the doorway, his expression unreadable. When she turned to face him, tears were already in his eyes. "You did it?" he whispered. Sophia smiled faintly. "No, we did." It was the first time she'd said we. Something fragile bloomed in the space between them, not love, not yet, but the seed of it. That night as she passed his study she heard him on the phone, arguing, his voice low but furious. "Father, I'm not coming back. I don't care about the company. I don't care about Clarissa. This is my life now." Pause. Then. "Because she deserves better than your damn reputation games." Sophia froze. He was talking about her. Defending her. Against his father. She stepped back before he noticed her and returned to her room, her mind spinning. Maybe Sebastian wasn't the man she thought he was. Maybe guilt wasn't the only thing driving him anymore. The next day the air between them felt lighter. They ate breakfast together for the first time. He poured her tea, she thanked him without sarcasm. He smiled, really smiled, and it startled her how warm it looked on his face. After breakfast, he showed her the greenhouse behind the estate, a place filled with roses, wild herbs, and untamed vines. "This was my mother's," he said quietly. "She used to say plants heal better when they're cared for with patience." Sophia touched a leaf. "Your mother was wise. She died when I was 12, he said. My father replaced the gardener with a landscape architect the next day. Said, sentimentality is bad for business." Sophia looked up at him, seeing the lonely boy behind the man. "That's horrible." He shrugged. "It's normal in our family. You learn early that love is conditional." For a long moment they stood there, two people who had both lost something precious. Then Sophia said softly, "Maybe love doesn't have to be." He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Later that night as she returned to her room, she caught her reflection in the mirror. The scar along her thigh was still there, angry and red. But her eyes looked alive again. She thought of Sebastian's quiet strength, his late-night sketches for her brace, his eyes when she took those steps. It scared her, how easily guilt could become affection. How affection could become something deeper. She lay down and stared at the ceiling, whispering into the dark. "I can't fall for him. I can't." Down the hall, Sebastian sat in his study, tracing the curve of her handwriting from one of her design sketches he'd found. He whispered almost the same words. "She deserves better than me." But love, real, messy, undeserved love, had already begun its slow, unstoppable work. The morning light seeped through the tall windows of the Hale mansion, painting the grand hallway in soft, almost cruel gold. Sophia's fingers trembled as she clutched the folded letter from her father, the paper crumpled under her grip. Every word burned her like acid, every line a revelation she hadn't been prepared to face. Her heart pounded, not from physical pain this time but from the raw sting of betrayal. She had always known Sebastian was complicated, a man driven by pride and rage, but the depth of the secrets he kept made her stomach turn. The letter confirmed what she had feared and suspected in the quiet corners of her mind. He had tried to protect her, yes, but in ways that were reckless and selfish. And yet he had never told her. Her chestnut hair fell into her face as she sank to the floor, hazel eyes brimming with tears that refused to fall. She could feel the weight of the mansion pressing on her, the silence between the walls suffocating. And then, from somewhere beyond the shadows of the hallway, she heard the faintest creak of footsteps. Sebastian. He paused at the entrance of the study, his gray-blue eyes wide with the realization that she had read the letter. His jaw, usually so taut with control, slackened slightly. His broad shoulders seemed smaller somehow, vulnerable beneath the weight of his own guilt. He took a step forward, hands slightly raised, as if to bridge a chasm he had spent months building. Sophia, he began, voice low and rough, a mixture of regret and desperation. "I wanted to tell you, I swear. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." Sophia looked up, her hazel eyes blazing now, storm clouds of anger swirling beneath the surface. "Didn't mean for me to find out?" she repeated, her voice trembling yet cutting through the still air like a blade. "Sebastian, you put me through hell. You let me believe, let me fear that I'd never walk again, never live my life freely. And all this time you thought hiding the truth would protect me?" His gray-blue eyes flickered with shame. His usual confidence, his carefully constructed walls, were crumbling under her gaze. "I was trying to protect you." Protect me?" Sophia's voice cracked, a mixture of sorrow and fury. "You destroyed my life. My dreams, my independence, my trust. Her legs shook, and she pressed a trembling hand to her chest as if to hold herself together. Sebastian stepped closer, but she took a step back, her eyes fixed on him with a mix of fear, anger, and disbelief. "Don't come near me. Not until I know you mean what you say." He froze, the sharp sting of rejection burning deeper than any blow she could have ever received. For a moment, the room held only the sound of their breaths, sharp and uneven, the tension between them thick enough to choke on. "I do mean it," he said finally, voice breaking. "Every word. I've made mistakes, terrible ones, but my love for you, it's the one thing I can't hide no matter how hard I tried." Sophia's eyes softened, just slightly at the tremor in his voice. But the walls she had built since that accident, the betrayal, the humiliation, the fear, weren't so easily dismantled. She shook her head, stepping back toward the door. "I need space. I can't look at you the same way right now. Maybe never." Sebastian swallowed hard, the sound echoing in the cavernous study. He wanted to reach out, to pull her into his arms, to beg for forgiveness, but he knew some things couldn't be rushed. "I'll wait," he said simply, the raw sincerity in his voice filling the room with quiet, heavy weight. "As long as it takes, Sophia. I'll wait." She didn't look back as she left, leaving him standing alone, the letter lying forgotten on the floor between them. Outside, the city basked in golden morning light, but inside, two hearts remained fractured, tethered by love, guilt, and secrets that would take more than words to mend. Weeks passed in silence, the kind that weighed heavier than any argument. Sophia had retreated into her work, filling her days with sketches, fabrics, and the tactile comfort of creation. Her caramel skin glowed with the warm afternoon sun streaming through her boutique windows, and her hazel eyes, once haunted, now shone with quiet determination. She moved gracefully among mannequins and draped fabrics, chestnut hair tumbling in soft waves, careful yet confident in every step. The past still lingered in her thoughts, the accident, the forced marriage, the betrayal, but she was reclaiming her life one stitch, one brushstroke at a time. Sebastian watched from the doorway that first day he dared to enter her boutique. His tall frame, olive skin, and tousled dark brown hair were a contrast to the bright, soft space. Gray-blue eyes, full of remorse and longing, followed her movements. She hadn't noticed him yet, so absorbed in her work, until a soft voice broke her concentration. "Sophia." She turned sharply, heart skipping, hazel eyes wide with a swirl of emotions. For a brief moment, past hurts flared, her lips pressing into a tight line. But seeing him standing there, tall, sincere, and undeniably him, something softened within her. His jaw was tense, shoulders slightly hunched with uncertainty, yet the depth of his gaze held a raw honesty she hadn't seen before. He started, but she raised a hand, silently asking him to wait. She studied him, every line of his face, every detail, the faint stubble along his jaw, the tousled dark brown hair that always fell just so over his forehead, the gray-blue eyes that had once haunted her dreams and now held only regret. Slowly she realized that love was still there, stubborn, undeniable, even after the chaos he had caused. "I'm not ready to forgive everything," she said quietly, her voice steady but soft, "but I can see that you've changed." A flicker of hope passed across his face, gray-blue eyes lighting with cautious optimism. "I don't expect immediate forgiveness," he admitted. I want to show you every day that my love is real. That I'm here and I'm not going anywhere this time." Tears welled in her eyes, not of sorrow but of relief and longing. She took a step closer, her leg brace hidden beneath the flowing fabric of her skirt, a faint limp almost invisible in her graceful movements. "Then, maybe we can try," she whispered, the first tentative bridge between them forming. Days turned into weeks and slowly the distance between them closed. Sebastian learned patience, humility, and the quiet power of supporting Sophia without overshadowing her. He watched her flourish in her boutique, smiled genuinely at her triumphs, and let her guide their renewed relationship. And Sophia in turn began to let herself rely on him, trusting him with small things at first, the occasional touch, shared laughter, and eventually stolen kisses in the quiet corners of her studio. The night of her first major fashion show marked the true turning point. Sophia, radiant in a flowing white gown of her own design, walked the runway with poise and confidence, caramel skin glowing under golden lights, chestnut hair cascading in soft curls. Among the applauding crowd, Sebastian stood tall, olive skin illuminated by stage lights, dark suit perfectly tailored, gray-blue eyes glimmering with pride. Their eyes met, and in that moment the years of pain, guilt, and misunderstanding melted away. After the show, under the Paris night sky, they stood on a balcony overlooking the Eiffel Tower. The soft glow of the city reflected in Sophia's hazel eyes and Sebastian's gray-blue gaze. He wrapped his arm gently around her waist, chest pressing close, and she leaned into him, her leg brace long removed, symbolizing the strength she had regained. "I love you," he murmured, voice low, intimate, carrying every ounce of sincerity he had held back for too long. "I love you too," she whispered, letting herself finally surrender, letting the past settle like dust behind them. The city lights sparkled below like a promise of new beginnings, and for the first time since that fateful night, both of them felt whole. Love, messy, real and hard-earned, had healed them, binding their hearts together not out of duty, but desire, respect and unshakable trust. And in that embrace, with the world sprawling around them and their souls intertwined, they finally understood. Some love is worth the pain, worth the chaos, and worth every step of the journey to get it right.